Good morning. We'll start gaveling in the first meeting of the 2024 Natural Resources Subcommittee. I'm echoing. Hello.
There's several of you.
Stepping on you.
Yeah.
Hello again. Oh, I think that works. All right. Normally, subcommittee meets after the full committee, but because of just the way the calendar is this year, we're meeting followed today by the full AC&R committee. So I just wanted a chance for committee members just to say hello and introduce ourselves since we haven't had a chance to meet and do that in full committee yet. And I'm sure Chairman Lopez will have us introduce ourselves in full committee as well. But I'm going to start down at this end with the chairman.
Hi, my name is Alfonso Lopez. I represent the 3rd District, which is South Arlington and parts of Alexandria.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Phil Hernandez. I represent Norfolk's 94th District.
Good morning. I'm Delegate Jackie Hope Glass. I represent the 93rd District, which is portions of Norfolk.
Hello, I'm Paul Krizek. I represent the 16th District, home of George Washington, Mount Vernon.
Good morning. I'm Charnel Herring. I represent the 4th House District, which is West Alexandria City in the Bailey's Crossroads area. Thank you.
Good morning. Rodney Willett, representing the 58th District, which is parts of Western Henrico.
Delegate Runyon, do you want to start?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Delegate Runyon, representing the 35th District, which is Southern Rockingham, Northern and Western Augusta, and all of Highland and Bath.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Rob Locks. I'm representing the 100th, the Eastern Shore, and a piece of Virginia Beach.
Good morning, Madam Chair and ladies and gentlemen. Tommy Wright, representing the 50th District, Southside Virginia, which includes Lunenburg, Mecklenburg, Prince Edward, Charlotte, and the northern part of Halifax. Pleased to be here. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and some very familiar faces in this committee. I'm Lee Ware. I represent the 72nd District, which includes a portion of Chesterfield and all of Powhatan, Amelia, and Nottoway counties. And who can compete with George Washington?
Thank you so much. Good morning. I'm Kathy Tran. I represent the new 18th House District, which is parts of Southeast Fairfax County. This morning, we have a shorter docket, and so we're starting at 7:30. If we ever get to the point where we have a really long docket, we might back up to 7 a.m., but just know I don't always start at 7 a.m. voluntarily. So I'm going to ask Delegate Simons to start, because I know she has a subcommittee that she's leading at 8 o'clock. Good morning, Delegate Simons. I think you have 2 bills before us. Is there one you would like to start with?
Good morning. Yes, can we start with HB 85, prohibit the use of cyanide in mineral mining, please?
All right, thank you. Committee members, HB 85 is before us. If you would like to tell us what the problem is and what your bill does.
HB 85 would prohibit the use of cyanide in mineral mining and processing. To be clear, no company has a permit to mine with cyanide at present, but we need this bill in case a company decides to start mining. Virginia is endowed with a seam of critical minerals running from Fairfax to Buckingham, and you may have heard that international companies have been coming here to prospect minerals like gold, copper, lead, and zinc. A recent study says we are not prepared if companies decide to start mining in the Commonwealth. The National Academy of Sciences raised concerns about the lack of regulations on the books, as well as the potential impacts to Virginia ground and surface water. Cyanide spills in mining are common and result in ruined drinking water and destruction of ecosystems and large fish kills. Because some of these mineral deposits are close to urban areas, we need this bill to help protect our water supply for citizens and future generations. You may ask why the Newport News delegate is carrying this bill. It's because almost 20 years ago, I was involved in the fight to stop uranium mining in Virginia as an everyday citizen, and I have never forgotten the importance of protecting our natural resources. I hope you will support this bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Delegate. Do we have any questions from the committee? Okay, I don't see any at this time. Do we have supporters? We'll give opportunities for folks to testify in support and opposition of the bill. I'm going to start with folks who are in the room. Is there anybody in the room who'd like to testify in support of the bill?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Patrick Fanning with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. I participated in the study group that was put forth from the 2021 bill by Delegate Guzman to study gold mining in the Commonwealth. And this is one of the recommendations that came out of that study conducted by the National Academy of Sciences. So we support this bill. We think it's a common sense way to fill a gap in our regulations to make sure that we're being protective in the case of any mining. As the delegate said, there currently is no gold mining in the Commonwealth, but this would get us ahead of things in case there ever were to be. So we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. My name is Jessica Sims. I'm speaking on behalf of Appalachian Voices. We're in strong support of this bill, and we appreciate that Delegate Simons brought this issue forward. This is a major and avoidable potential threat to Virginia's waterways, and specifically the James River watershed, which provides drinking water for millions, and all of those downstream communities. So this, to reiterate, is a common sense approach to avoiding something that we don't have to have come into Virginia, which is the potential contamination by cyanide. We also thank the co-patrons, and I want to flag the comments of support from Piedmont Environmental Council that were submitted online. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's one additional person.
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Steve Carter Lovejoy, and I represent the Virginia Sierra Club, and we also support this bill.
Thank you. Delegate Bluxham?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my question is, since I don't have any of this in my area, cyanide, is that the only compound that you use in gold or silver mining? I mean, would this basically cut the industry of ever coming here, or are there other compounds that you can use in place of this?
Madam Chair, I believe there are other ways to conduct gold mining, but would I be able to phone a friend and have other people
Sure.
answer that question?
Yeah, is there an expert in the room you'd like to have come up?
Thank you for the question, Delegate Bloxham. There are other ways to do this, including a flotation method. So this is a common method for large-scale mining, but it is not the only method to large-scale metals mines. So other materials and a flotation method, which is also commonly used. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Do
you have a follow-up, or would you like to answer that question too, sir?
I can help answer, yeah.
Okay.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee. My name's Rob Lanham. I'm with the Virginia Transportation Construction Alliance. I've got over 38 years in the mining industry. There are other methods to process gold. What the cyanide is used for is to separate the gold from the ore. There are other methods, chemical and mechanical methods that can be employed.
Madam Chair.
Delegate Bluxham?
If the gentleman could answer another question. The reason you use cyanide, I'm assuming, is because it's either cheaper or it's faster, or are the other methods environmentally safer, or are they or would it do as much harm to do another method?
I don't know the answer to that. I just know that there are other methods. I'm not a gold mining expert. I've been in
Madam Chair.
Great. Thank you, Delegate Bluxham. Thank you, sir. Are there any questions at this time from the committee? Oh, Delegate Ware.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on Delegate Bloxham's question, and I wonder if we do have a mining department. I'm trying to come up with the name of it in the Commonwealth, and I wonder if there's a representative from that agency that would be here that could speak to it.
Sir, are you with the mining department? Okay.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Delegate. I'm Larry Corky, Virginia Department of Energy, formerly Mines, Minerals and Energy. And we also have our Director of Mineral Mines, Phil Skarupa, available virtually, who would be able to answer the more technical questions.
Okay, he would be the one to... Madam Chair, I'd like to sort of reiterate the questions that Delegate Bloxham asked of if this gentleman who may, or whoever it is that's able to testify virtually.
Mr. Clerk, are we able to bring Mr. Phil Skarupa up from the Department of Energy to provide some technical assistance? Oh, he's not in the room at this moment? Mr. Skarupa, if you're in the room, can you unmute your microphone? Mr. Skarupa, can you say hello just so we can see if you're on? Oh, I think they're working to bring him on. Okay, so Mr. Skarupa, if you can hear us, we need you to unmute, and I think then we would be able to hear your testimony.
Madam Chair, I appreciate the
I think he's here.
Is he? Okay.
From other states.
A couple of other states.
Mr. Skarupa, is that you on the screen? Sir, I think you have to unmute your microphone on your end.
Let's try that and see if that works.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr.
Had to
Skarupa,
change
did you
the
hear the
setting.
questions from the
Apologize.
delegates?
Yeah, apologize. Had to change a setting on the sound.
You're all
Just
good.
I need to introduce myself.
Sure, if you can introduce yourself, and I think, let me reiterate the questions from Delegate Bluxham and Delegate Ware, which is, can you talk about whether or not there are alternatives to using cyanide in mining gold and other minerals, and the cost?
Yes, I at least answer the one question that there are other methods. It's not the only method, and currently we do have, a couple small-scale gold mines in Virginia that are using a mechanical separation that requires no chemicals or anything. It's a wash system, other things. It's mechanical and water-based. So they do not use chemicals for separation, and actually they are remining tailings from previous mining. They're not actually doing new extraction of ore.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, great, thank you. We're going to continue with testimony too. Are there any folks who are opposed to this bill in the room that would like to testify? All right, and I think online for HB 85, we also had Pat Calvert who wanted to testify in favor of, but he's not online. All right. Oh, he's here in person, sorry.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning,
Pat Calvert,
sir.
on behalf of Virginia Conservation Network, I'd like to express my support for this bill on behalf of the whole organization.
Great, thank you, and I apologize I didn't see you back there. Any questions from the committee? All right, do you have any closing remarks, Delegate Simons?
I would just reiterate that cyanide contaminates, it kills fish. There are examples in other states where they've had to clean up and it's costs the government to do that. So, this is bad stuff, and I think we should ban it in Virginia. Thank you.
Delegate Willett?
Madam Chair, move to report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move to report this bill. It is now before us. Open the rolls, please, Mr. Clerk. Committee members, please vote on House Bill 85. Thank you so much. Please close the rolls. The motion has, the bill has been approved by a vote of 10-0. Thank you, Delegate Simons. Do you have one more bill with us?
Yes.
Go ahead.
If I can present HB 84. This bill requires notification be given to localities and nearby landowners about planned exploration activities for mineral mining. This bill was developed in response to direct concerns from Virginians in areas of exploration for metals such as gold and copper. This bill would not impact any current mining operations in Virginia, as it solely addresses future exploration activity, which is separate from current operations. I do have an amendment. Actually, I believe there might be 2 amendments to this bill, and let me tell you about those. The amendment is designed to make it clear that this does not apply to quarrying activities for extracting stone for gravel and construction. This amendment I've presented makes it clear that mineral shall not mean minerals extracted for the primary purpose of building and road construction. Transparency and accountability in mineral exploration are extremely important, and when local authorities can better understand and monitor exploration activities, a cooperative relationship between explorers and the community can be established. People have a right to know if their resources could be impacted. Exploration activity can impact the shared water and environmental resources of an area. Further, post-exploration, large-scale mining operations can negatively impact property values, and landowners have a right to know about the potential of this happening in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Simons. Delegate Simons would like to introduce an amendment. Can I get a motion on that, please? All those in favor? Aye. The amendment is now, any opposition? Thank you. The amendment is now properly before us, and I think, I think you had your opening statement to explain the purpose of your bill. Great. Yes. Are there any questions from committee members about House Bill 85? Delegate Bluxham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to be clear, so if I'm looking at purchasing a 1,000-acre plot, everyone within 500 yards of my boundary, I need to contact to let them know that I'm going to drill 5 or 6 holes on the property?
So if you begin a mining exploration for minerals, yes, you need to provide public notice. If you just buy a property because you're thinking about mining, you don't need to. You have to actually start the process.
Follow up, Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Delegate Bluxham.
So if I'm thinking about, I'm a miner, so you know I'm a miner, but I'm not going to buy the property unless I find anything. But I'm still wondering how many people am I going to have to, on this 1,000-acre lot, if I drill in the middle of it to see if there's any, if I want to buy it, if I do, how many people do I have to notify that I'm going to actually drill a hole in it?
Madam Chair, I guess that would just depend on how many neighbors there are for that property, but any kind of mining exploration would require notifying the neighbors.
Delegate Bluxham.
So just to be clear, so a 1,000-acre parcel, the way I'm reading this, everyone on the property line, before I buy it, I would have to notify to let them know that I'm going to drill a hole in the middle of it. Is that?
I'm not really sure why buying the property has to do with this. The only notification that needs to go out is if you start to drill the holes for exploration.
Great, thank you. Delegate Herring.
Thank you. My button wasn't working. Thank you, Madam Chair. And this may be a question for council. What is the process now? Someone is prospecting land before purchase. Does our law address it at all right now?
Chair, that might be a question for Energy to answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Are you able to answer that?
Yes, Madam Chair, Delegate. Right now, those exploration activities are not regulated. They're exempted on the basis that they have minimal impacts.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Delegate Runyon?
Madam Chair, question of the patron. I'm curious to know, Madam Chair, what the genesis of this bill is. What problems have been created by these test holes? In our part of the world, they would be very similar to drilling water wells, and I don't see those to be obtrusive or interfering with our neighbors' lives. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So in Virginia, we have had residents who live close to properties where there was exploration for gold. And this exploration was actually going on for a number of years without the neighbors realizing that they were drilling and exploring. There is an international company that prospects and explores for minerals. If they find minerals, then they go and contract with a large multinational mining company to come in. So we know there have been exploration activities going on recently in Virginia.
Great, thank you.
Madam Chair, follow.
Delegate Runyon, go ahead.
So how were the neighbors negatively impacted by this ongoing exploration? Again, unless I'm not understanding, we're drilling a hole down in the ground like we do water wells. And I have a neighbor that has a water well that's 850 feet. So we're not talking about differentials on that. And I had no idea that they were there doing that. So what are we trying to stop or solve, or what is the challenge of allowing a landowner to drill holes in his ground to figure out what's there?
So just to be clear, we're not talking about drilling for water or creating wells. We're talking about exploring for metals and gold, copper, zinc. Virginia does have these minerals. They are critical minerals, and we expect to have more interest coming in the future. This bill is really about making sure we have public notice so that if people are coming to explore and to drill, that we know. We have many minerals that are co-located together. Uranium is co-located with some of these other minerals throughout Virginia. I think it is a public safety issue to know if there is exploration drilling going on in an area that might have uranium deposits. So that would be my answer.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Delegate Runyon, do you have another follow-up?
So I understand, and I do understand. I was just equating the hole in the ground for what you're talking about versus a hole in the ground that my neighbors put in that happens to get water out of. But when we mine before we are allowed to mine, isn't there a permitting process that requires significant public notice and significant public engagement? And what we're doing is trying to move all that ahead, and it may create some very competitive disadvantages. And so, if I'm trying to buy a piece of property that may have minerals on it, that's going to determine the value. And if I don't know if it's there, I don't know what to pay. And then if all of a sudden I've got to notify everybody else, then somebody else could come in, and all of a sudden we're getting a bidding war. And I think I don't understand the compelling reason of the state to interfere in the private property rights of this. So is there not already notification in process prior to any actual mining to occur?
So, Madam Chair, I think our job as legislators is to balance these priorities. And while I understand that we do have property rights, I think water quality, protecting our water from contamination from things like uranium is of utmost, the most important thing here. I believe that the NASM study did find that we have a lack of regulations around mining in Virginia. This bill is a part of getting ahead of that so that we have public disclosure in place. I believe that we did just hear that we don't have public notification for exploration, but I'm happy to have our Department of Energy folks confirm or deny.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sir, thank you.
Madam Chair, Delegate, it's correct, we do not have notification for drilling exploration, but if something was land disturbing, so if you were using excavators or a more heavy-duty method to explore for minerals, that would be regulated.
Thank you so much. Delegate Glass.
So my question was from way back when, but I think we should keep along with this line of questions, so I'll forego my question.
Thank you, Delegate Glass. I have Delegate Krizek.
So this is a kind of a difficult situation, but because there is, with the drilling, you've got drilling equipment and everything else, but don't we also, when you're doing the exploration, as you call it, isn't that also, you have to bring in machinery and everything, big, heavy, noisy machinery that would have to go drill down into the ground to do the exploration? I think I'm seeing the property rights issue from the neighbors' kind of side of this, where they would have disturbance, and they would like to know that this is just a simple notification to them saying, hey, we're going to be doing this exploration drilling, which may not be as big as taking out the minerals or whatever, but it's still a disturbance. Is there no process now to let neighbors know when a rig comes onto a property? It could be not 500 yards away, it could be 5 feet away from the property line.
Madam Chair, Delegate,
yes, sir.
This may be a better question for Mr. Skarupa, who is on the line again. I'm not too sure of the exact equipment that is used.
Okay, can we try to bring Mr. Skarupa back on the line again? And thank you for sitting back in the front row. You might be needed again.
Yes, good morning. This is Phil Skarupa back. Any questions or particular things you'd like me to clarify? Go ahead and ask questions.
Delegate Krizek, do you want to repeat your question?
Yeah, so it was a long-winded one, but I'm going to make it quicker. So I'm trying to figure out, I don't know anything about mining exploration, but there's two things happening, right? There's first the exploration, and then there's the actual mining. We're concerned about notification for the exploration. Can you tell us what that entails? Is it something where the neighbors should be notified because there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of smoke, there might be diesel engines, it might be very, it might be something that people want to be aware of, or is it just a very minor, like somebody with a backpack can do it in their back garden and it's not disturbing anyone? If you could explain that to us, thank you.
Yes, I'll be glad to, because exploratory drilling is kind of a broad term used for subsurface borings to determine what's under there, and it can be done with hand drills. It can be done with small, engine-powered manned handheld that a couple people can hold and do a boring, or it can be a very small drill rig or a large drill rig. Depends on what depth they're going. But to make this a little clear, I think there's another question that was asked talking about why you do the drilling. Well, first thing is, the state of Virginia has a geological map that defines all the regions of where certain minerals are located on past history and geology and other things. So we know the locations of certain deposits and, pretty much the extent of them. And what exploratory drilling does is goes in and confirms it. But, even doing exploratory drilling, which is minimally invasive and, doesn't really have a big impact, there's not a potential for mining until you establish by exploratory drilling that that deposit has the potential to be a reserve, which at that point, then it becomes something that is mineable or marketable. Without that, just having the mineral and knowing it's there doesn't make it, that you're going to mine today.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Great. I'd like to take some testimony from the public. If you are here in support of this bill, please come forward.
Good morning again, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. Jessica again with Appalachian Voices, Jessica Sims. We're in strong support of HB 84 because it is something the NASEM study specifically asked for. They flagged that there is an environmental damage concern from exploratory drilling, and they made a recommendation that public engagement be increased. Within Buckingham County, where the exploratory drilling was occurring, we're talking about drilling happening on properties that are 40 to 60 acres. So it's not as large a property as mentioned earlier, but what folks in the area were experiencing after exploratory drilling happened and water was pulled from Sycamore Creek in Buckingham County is that the nearby church's wells were going dry. And so neighbors noticed a change in their wells, and then that's what alerted to them to something going on. After that, community members found out exploratory drilling had been happening for a number of years without the county's knowledge, without residents' knowledge. And so we appreciate that this bill is trying to let neighbors know what is happening in their backyard and that it is a recommendation from the National Academy of Sciences, and we thank the patron for her bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Patrick Fanning again with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. Thank the patron for the bill. We also support this bill. Again, it was a recommendation of the National Academy of Sciences Study Group. We think it's an important but narrow public transparency step. Most of this exploratory activity is happening in rural areas, so we don't think it would be particularly burdensome to notify the few neighbors that are likely to be affected by this exploratory drilling, so we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning again.
Madam Chair, Steve Carter Lovejoy with the Virginia chapter of the Sierra Club, and we support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Calvert.
Madam Chair, Pat Calvert, Virginia Conservation Network, for the reasons you just heard, we also support this bill and hope that you will as well.
Thank you. Did you want to speak in support of the bill?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. Rob Lanham, Virginia Transportation Construction Alliance. Our organization represents over 90% of all the non-metal minerals that are mined in Virginia. We support this bill with the amendments and with the understanding that there may be additional caveats added to this amendment that we've discussed with the delegate. So with that, we support this bill.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Good morning,
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee. I think this comes down to two things. You can't know what you don't know. And this gives local residents a chance to say, hey, this is our community. We know about some of the concerns that you may be coming in and you're not aware of, whether that's the wells, the potential for those wells to run dry or other impacts. This just allows folks who are nearby, who know their community, to give those companies considering this exploratory drilling a heads up. And the second one is it's a relatively small lift. I think if you look at what is allowed under exploratory drilling for Virginia, the holes are bigger than you think and the notice requirement is smaller than you think. So for those reasons, we encourage you to support this bill. I'm Chris, the Virginia League of Conservation Voters.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Sarah Thomas with Vector, here on behalf of the Old Dominion Highway Contractors Association. I want to thank the delegate. We were originally opposed to the underlying bill, but with the amendments that were made today to, minerals shall not mean materials extracted for the primary purpose of building and road construction, it would remove our members and those that work in like aggregate mining from this bill. So we now certainly appreciate your work on this and for working with us to make this amendment possible. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Delegate Hernandez.
I just wanted to thank the patron for bringing this bill and just clarify that really at the end of the day, for all the questions that we've entertained here, this is merely a notice requirement that we are imposing, essentially to be a good neighbor in some respects if you are doing these activities on your land. There's no mechanism to intervene if you're a neighbor or stop what's happening next door. We're just asking for notice. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to see if there are any individuals in the room who are in opposition to this bill. Oh, hello, sir.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, Larry Corky, Virginia Department of Energy. The administration opposes the bill on the basis of some technical issues that have been communicated to the patron.
Great. Thank you so much. Members of the committee. Delegate Herring? There's been a motion and it's been seconded to move and report this bill. Delegate Ware?
With amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to make a couple of observations related to various topics that have come up in this. One is that mining has occurred in Buckingham County since the 1940s. It's principally right now for a mineral called kyanite. I would also note in terms of uranium, which has been long known to be in Virginia, in 1982, we set the Commonwealth set a policy of effectively a moratorium on uranium mining. And then about 25 years later, in 2007, there was a General Assembly study, and we did have the National Academy of Sciences look at that, and they said there were things that we needed to do in our regulatory scheme if we decided to lift that moratorium. Now that's some of that's related to what this bill does. I think from what the testimony we've heard, it does sound to me like anything that goes beyond the very preliminary work of exploration, there is provisions for public notification that would let affected neighbors or potentially affected neighbors know about this. I do, having heard the reservations given in its proper form, I don't know that I couldn't vote for it with some further improvement, but at this point I cannot support the bill.
Thank you for your comment, Delegate Ware. I think the motion before us right now is to report the underlying bill, but I think we had an amendment. Delegate Herring, would you like to?
Yes. If Madam Chair, if I can correct my motion to move to report as amended.
The motion is now to move to report as amended. That motion has been seconded, and this bill is now before us for a vote. Mr. Clerk, if you can open the rolls. Mr. Clerk, it doesn't seem to be registering. Should we do a voice vote? Or can we record our votes audibly? Audibly. Thank you. Via roll call. Back to paper and pencil. We go old style in this committee.
The motion is to report with amendments HB 84. Delegate Willett.
Aye. Yes.
Delegate Herring.
Aye.
Delegate Krizik. Aye. Delegate Glass. Aye. Delegate Hernandez. Aye. Delegate Ware.
No.
Delegate Wright.
No.
Delegate Bloxham.
No.
Delegate Runyon.
No.
And Chair Tran.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. 6-4.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Delegate Simons, House Bill 84 passes by a vote of 6-4. Thank you.
Thank you, committee.
Thank you very much. To the next bill, I think I have one that we can move, if we can do, I believe, a voice vote for House Bill 309. We'd like to take that by for the day.
Second.
Thank you. That House Bill 309 has been moved and seconded to be taken by for the day. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Great. So that bill is taken by for the day. Delegate Orrock.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chairman. House Bill 216.
Yes, sir. Please tell us about your bill.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, committee members, I'm also, before we actually get into the meat of the bill, going to request 2 amendments, and that would be on line 44. After the word request, strike only, and I'm sorry, it's going to be 3 amendments. Same line after temporary A, I'm sorry, 4A, strike temporary or permanent. So the line would then read, request to the department for a variance. And then the final amendment, Madam Chairman, at the request of the department, and my concurrence is line 68, change 2024 to 2025 to give them additional time to do their work.
Thank you, Delegate Orrock. We have I believe 3 amendments before us, and I just want to make sure that our council has that. There's a nod. Yes, great. Can we have somebody please move in these amendments so they're properly before us? All those in favor of moving the amendments, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great. Thank you. Go ahead.
Madam Chairman, if may, in explaining the bill and why it's before you today, I think it's going to be valuable to give a little history. Low hazard impounding structures. An impounding structure is a dam. So yes, this is my dam bill. That was supposed to be comedy, but I think it was hard. Prior to the early 1990s, Virginia had no dam safety provisions. In the early 1990s, they were put into place, but all existing dams were grandfathered and exempt from those regulations. In the early 2000s, we determined that there were a number of problems with some of those previous unregulated dams, particularly as it related to private residential communities that had built these large dams proximate to state highways, and they weren't up to specs, and the potential of major public damage or danger was made very apparent. So in the early 2000s, we removed the grandfather from all the dams, which brought about 3,000 dams now under the state regulatory purview. Many of these dams built 150, 200 years ago as mill pond dams in the various communities around our Commonwealth. To give that little background of history, since the early 2000s, the department has been going through and developed a process whereby they've tried to determine the most high risk of those low risk dams. And to their credit, they've been working their way down in the process, and we've now gotten to a point where we're getting into some of the smaller dams. And therein is the situation behind this bill today. Because of the process they currently have in place, they've determined in my district there's a gentleman who has a 20-acre land parcel with a 7-acre mill pond dam that was built 150 years ago or more. In this particular case, there's also an additional dam prior to his dam that was built by VDOT to run a road across it. Sidebar, the VDOT dam doesn't have to be built to regs because it is not the primary impounding structure. But because there is a government building, water treatment plant, half to 3/4 a mile downstream from this gentleman's dam, it qualified for being in a high-risk potential because if that dam breached, that building may have some flooding. The net effect of all this is they approached him. He had to do a preliminary study, which cost him about $3,000 out of pocket to prove whether it truly met standards or not, which it does not under their new regs. And they told him the solution to his problem, to get his dam up to standards of a 7-acre pond, 10 foot deep at the most, was going to be $1 million. Oh, But there are grants available in a competitive type process, both state and federal, which it could really get the cost down to about $187,000 he would have to pay ultimately after fronting the full mill and hoping he would get the grants, and hopefully then to have a $200,000 pond, which he's already got. And I would suggest with an impound of water that's truly not going to be any more detrimental downstream than if we have a hurricane come through the area anyway right now. All this bill does, Madam Chairman and members of the subcommittee, is two things. In working with the department, I met them on site, and they kind of said their hands were tied because the commissioner can't recognize specific unique circumstances. This would allow first in code, at the landowner's request, the commissioner may, they'd have put in a specific process, may give a variance to whatever degree the commission determined or the board determined. In the enactment language, the governor and secretary of natural resources would have to be advised of any variances given. And further in the enactment language is having them, as they're already going through the regulatory process now, to review the regs, do a little more comprehensive, look at how other states have handled it, bring into play a cost risk to the landowner factor, things of that nature. That's all this does. Primarily, one, it gives them the latitude to recognize there are unique circumstances where the regs don't always apply and issue specific case by case, and then also look at what's there in a more comprehensive manner. That's all the matter does now.
Thank you so much, Delegate Orrock. Do I have any questions from members of the committee? Delegate Ware?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I heard you say this, Delegate Orrock, but this, although you gave a specific example, and you, I presume, as a constituent of yours, this has application statewide. Is that accurate or not accurate?
Very much so, that the department is still charged under the regulations of the early 2000s of going to every one of these dams and making sure they comply. So this is coming to a dam near you. And right now, as a little sidebar, agricultural dams are exempt. But once that farm sells, that farm dam that has always been exempt will now have to come under these same standards, so that 3,000 number is going to increase as farms are sold for development.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Delegate Runyon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question of the delegate. So the agriculture exemption that exists now, if the farm is sold and remains in agricultural use, is the dam still exempt?
As long as it's continuing for an agricultural use, yes. But if it goes for development, no.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate.
Are there any other questions? Oh, Delegate Lopez.
Madam Chair, thank you. The bill says it could be temporary or permanent variance. Why is there a need for permanent variance?
And in talking with the department, I would say to Mr. Chairman, we've taken that language out to give just total latitude. We struck the words temporary or permanent, so it'd be totally up to the department in their process as to what type of variance they may wish to issue. It wouldn't dictate that they would have to give a permanent variance in any circumstance.
Madam Chair.
Delegate Lopez.
So, but they still could give a permanent variance.
Totally at their discretion, yes, sir. Again, I would say, if I may in furtherance, though, the governor and secretary of natural resources would also be advised of every single variance and the conditions under which they were issued.
All right. Can we see if there's any public testimony in support of this bill, please? All right. Is there anybody here who is opposed to this bill? Okay. Are there any questions from the committee? Delegate Ware?
Madam Chair, I move to recommend reporting House Bill 216 with the amendments. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you for that motion, Delegate Ware. I think on the enactment clause, the second one, is that the department would have to complete a study. So I believe that we need to we need to then refer this bill to rules for that study. Because there is a study and the Rules Committee can consider that. So if you would like to amend your motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not being aware of that, I will rescind the first motion and make a motion to recommend reporting and referring to the Rules Committee the House Bill 216 as amended.
So the motion before us has been seconded. It is to report and refer House Bill 216 to the Rules Committee. Delegate Orrock?
Madam Chairman, if I may, while I would much prefer the existing language about the study, if we were to strike the second enactment, would that negate the need for it to go to Rules, and the Agriculture Committee could vote on the underlying policy, which would thereby be giving them the ability to create a process for a variance, and that's all it would have the effect of doing. And if that would be the case, Madam Chairman, I would ask that the gentleman would withdraw his motion, and I would then proffer a further amendment to the bill, striking lines 62 through 68, and let the Ag Committee act on the underlying policy.
Delegate Lopez, I see your hand is up. Okay. I do believe that that would be correct because there is no study. It would not have to go to Rules. So the delegate would like to add Delegate, where were you going to speak to his suggestion for the
Madam Chair, I'm going to back up a second time, withdraw my second motion.
We are parliamentarily nimble. Okay, so I think before us is an amendment to strike lines 62 through 68. Can I get a motion so that amendment can be before us? So that has been moved and seconded. All in favor of adding the fourth amendment, I believe, to our bill, the underlying bill, please say aye. 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 Any opposition? Hearing none. Okay, so line 62 through 68 has been struck. And I think where that leaves us, Council, if I'm correct, is with the amendments earlier, so allowing the department to create a process for a variance to be requested by the owner of the dam, and that the third enactment now becomes the second one. And that's probably an update. So that the department shall advise the governor and the secretary of any variances that they issue.
Madam Chair, that's correct.
That is the bill before us, subcommittee members.
Speaking to the, Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Delegate Krasik?
Speaking to the bill or with this new amendment, I did like the bill before, and I'm a little bit nervous about it because that second enactment clause was studying hazard potential classifications and things. Anytime you're studying hazardous stuff, I like to hope that that's going to be studied. You know, so do we know if the administration Department of Conservation and Recreation is okay with taking that out, or what? I feel a little bit uncomfortable.
And while they're coming, Madam Chairman, while they're coming forward, the department has taken no position as it currently exists, and would also add the regs are currently in the review process as we speak. And it would be my intention, if this goes forward, that I would just, as a legislator, write a letter to the department requesting that as they're going through the process, that they would consider these issues.
Thank you.
Delegate Ware?
All right, let's third time be the charm. My motion is to recommend reporting House Bill 216 as amended, recommend reporting to the full committee.
The motion before us to report the bill with the as amended to the full committee. And that motion has been seconded. Mr. Clerk, could you please open the rolls? One roll. Thank you. We can close the roll. Delegate Orrock, your bill passes by a vote. House Bill 216, Delegate Orrock passes by a vote of 8-2.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the subcommittee.
All right, we are left with one bill. And that bill is Delegate Krizik's bill. Would you like to present from your seat, Delegate Krizik, or would you like to go to the podium?
Can I stay here? Thank you, Madam
Yes.
Chair.
Before us is House Bill 198.
Thank you. You have, this directs the Department of Energy to produce a report that quantifies the potential benefits of using solar energy for residential, commercial, and government building rooftops, parking lots, brownfields across the Commonwealth. As you all know, I have a couple other bills that will be coming through this committee, I hope, on brownfields and on solar. And this is kind of a companion piece to that. And it's just a Section 1 bill here. You know, back in 2016, there was a federal Department of Energy study that estimated 30% of Virginia's electricity demand could be satisfied by solar rooftop. That was 8 years ago. And Virginia's energy demand has really changed, hasn't it, in the last 4 or 5 years, let alone 8 years. And so has federal and state statutory and regulatory framework affecting renewable energies changed. In December 22, Time Magazine estimated that 33% of national demand for electricity could be met by putting solar over parking lots. But we just don't have that information about Virginia. We don't know. And this bill is just asking the Department of Energy to find that out. You know, we're in the dark about what solar energy potential is for brownfields, including old industrial and coal mining areas. And these lands could be very helpful in both meeting our renewable energy needs and revitalizing communities that have brownfields. So I think it's critical that we have reliable current Virginia information will be provided by this bill to understand solar's full potential, and so that we can balance the need for clean renewable energy to meet our growing energy demand while preserving open spaces. It's currently a lot cheaper to buy farmland or cut down forests to build utility scale solar than it is to put solar on existing or new rooftops, parking lots, and brownfields. We need to change that paradigm. To better conserve our open space and natural resources, we need to understand how we can provide incentives to install solar on those kinds of locations that will not damage our environment or hurt Virginia's agriculture. So this is just a simple Section 1 bill, and I hope that the committee will look upon it favorably. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Delegate Krizik, thank you. I deeply appreciate your pun. I hope everybody caught it. Delegate Bluxham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since I don't want the delegate to be left in the dark, with the study, could it be broadened to actually look at like a cost to benefit ratio? Because at the end of the day, this is going to be a financial equation, it looks like to me. And as much as I want to save my forest and my farmland, as you said earlier, that it is far cheaper to do that than what you're suggesting. But without having the monetary value put in this study, I'm not sure we'll get exactly what we're looking for.
Delegate Krizik?
Yeah, I'm certainly open to that. I don't think this would preclude that from happening anyway. This is just that these would be included, but the department could certainly add to it. And I'm sure that they would like to do that and are probably working on one right now, maybe. Thank you, Delegate.
Delegate Krizik, I just want to make sure that I understand, you are open to that as a friendly amendment, adding that language?
I don't think it's necessary, but if that's what it takes to get the delegates' vote, I would do that. But do you think it's necessary, Delegate Bloxham?
Madam Chair, I'll talk with the delegate in the next between and talk with some of the supporters of it to make sure that we're all on the same page.
All right, thank you. I was just asking to see if we needed counsel to help draft something. Are there other questions from the committee? Are there folks in the room who support this bill and would like to testify?
Madam Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Martha Moore, Virginia Farm Bureau. I certainly would like to thank Delegate Krizik for bringing this forward. This is something that our members have said is that we have to look at all of the options, parking lots, buildings, brownfields, so that we can preserve our prime farmland and our open farmland and our forest land across the Commonwealth. So thank you very much for bringing it forward, and I hope it's the pleasure of the subcommittee to move this bill forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Brad Copenhaver, representing the Virginia Agribusiness Council, associate myself with Ms. Moore from the Farm Bureau. This is a very important issue to our members as well. We have policy supporting this type of research and looking at all options for the placement of these facilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, Kyle Shreve on behalf of the Virginia Forestry Association. I'll associate my comments with those. It's very important to preserve forest land in the working forest in the Commonwealth. We appreciate the delegate bringing it forward and support the bill.
Great. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, excuse me, Madam Chairman, appreciate this bill being brought forward. I'm Jim Riddell with the Virginia Cattlemen's Association, and we're all concerned about the loss of farm and forestry land in Virginia, and we appreciate what this will do to help us understand that and know going forward. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody in the room here to speak against this bill? Okay, I don't see anybody, and I don't think we have anybody signed up online, Mr. Clerk. Nobody's online. Any other questions from the committee? Delegate Lopez, is that you? No. Oh, Delegate Ware. Oh, I would. Before we have the motion, Delegate Krizek, would you take as a friendly amendment adding closed landfills to the list of sites to examine?
Sure. That sounds good.
Thank you. So I
move the amendment, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And so the amendment to add closed landfills to the list on lines 12 and 13 is before us. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Great. So the bill as amended is before us. Delegate Ware, do you still have a motion?
I move to recommend reporting House Bill 198 as amended.
It's been moved and seconded to report House Bill 198 as amended. All those in, please open the roll, Mr. Clerk. Committee. We can close the roll, and this bill, House Bill 198, passes unanimously by a vote of 10-0. Thank you so much. Committee members, I think that completes our docket for the day. We'll see y'all at 9 for full committee.